Welcome to Deep Thought. So many layers to people and situations. Now, I just told you in the last episode, sometimes we try to rationalize too many things. And even with this, let me make it clear. You don't have to try to rationalize it, but this is just a basic reality. There are so many layers to people. I mentioned either yesterday or I think in the aesthetic show, there was somebody who commented on this channel and said, "Oh yeah, I figured you out." I'm like, "What you figure out? The only thing you can see is the surface." There's so many layers. All of us have so many layers to us. Now, if you real practice and you know what to look for, you can go 2 or 3 layers deep, but any person might have 8 layers deep, 9 layers. There's always something. And that starts when we're children. We come into the world with a NATO personality. Anybody who doubts that and say, "Oh no, it's a blank slate," you haven't been a parent. You haven't been a parent. When my sons were still in utero, the way they acted in utero, they still do now. Like my oldest son, he was jumpy. He was like boom, boom, all over the place. He's still kind of that way. Even when he quiet, he's just moving. He sleeps. You put some cover on him, get up in the morning. The cover might be on the other side of the room. The sheets all up. Feet might be all on the wall, something like that. The other son, when he came out, while he was in utero, he was real quiet. We actually had to poke him a few times. And we actually asked him nicely because he was in breech position at first. We had to actually ask him nicely to turn around, and he did so they can hear you. He was real quiet, real calm. The thing is, once he goes to bed, he will, whatever position, he will go to bed a certain way, and he will be in that position when he wakes up in the morning. But my point with that is, well, not just to share about my sons in utero, but you come into the world with a general temperament anyway. So that's the base layer right there. But then we can have some trauma that happens, and then we develop a defense mechanism, a personality, so to speak, a counterfeit personality, but it's really a defense mechanism. Okay, that adds to it. And then as we're as we're growing up, different things, different experiences add to it. It adds to the mask that we wear. And of course, for those who are adherents to astrological systems or something, you could say, okay, that plays a part. But then there's several levels to that. There's so many things. That's the people. There's so many layers to a situation. We see the surface of a situation. Like if we see 2 individuals fighting in a public place. All right. Now we can say, okay, those 2 individuals are fighting. You can see that by everybody's observation. Okay, these people are fighting. Okay, that's one level of the situation. But then the level below that is how they even get there. How they even get in that place at that time to fight. And then another level, still another level. What was it in their personalities that brought them there? What would then, even beyond that, what was in their personalities that, would get them to the point that if they encountered that situation, that they would even fight? There's so much to it. Like any situation, like political situations, anything that's happening in the world politically, there's always something behind it. And I'm saying this as somebody who, lived and worked in D.C. and had connections with people who were on Capitol Hill. I have a buddy, I can still blame him for a certain politician's speeches. So, it's, you think, okay, there's more to it, more going on. What's not being said? I can think of numerous instances, something else is not being said. This is what's on the surface. Like whenever I watch anything on the news, it could be politics, some economic thing. All right, what's behind that? Let me use the economic example. Okay, like a corporation might make a big deal out of a certain product or something. Okay, what was behind that? What were the meetings? What was the research? How much money was put into it? Who came up with it? And then sometimes you could point that might be connected, a certain product might be connected to a political agenda. There's always something. There's always so many layers to everything, And it could be tough to figure out. let me go back to people again. I'll use myself, and let me be clear. Whenever I use myself, if y'all really pay attention, I don't like talking about other people, and I'll share my instance or my experience with something just to let you know I'm climbing that mountain with you. That's why I say do not call me a guru. But I get a lot of people when they first meet me, like publicly, they say, "Rom, you look mean." I've heard several people say that. You look dangerous. You look like you might hurt somebody. Okay, that's one layer. That's a surface layer. But then they get to know me. It's like, okay, another layer is if I'm cool with you, I'm very friendly, I'm very helpful. But then yet another layer, well, let's just say I ain't going to incriminate myself, what I'm capable of doing. But there's still a layer there. And then, you got another layer. We all do. Like a common layer many people have is that inner child that hasn't been healed, that has gone through some trauma and is still there. And that's a lot of people. A lot of people have that inner child, that little boy, that little girl that went through some terrible trauma. And he might suppress it, but it never quite goes away. It never quite goes away. So that's a part of the layer as well. And that's something added to your personality. And sometimes people aren't conscious of it, but it's always there. It's always more than meets the eye with anyone, Like I said, if you get practice, you can say you could probably see maybe 2 or 3. You can see some general stuff. But at the end of the day, you don't know what's underneath it. You don't know what's that person's motivations for doing what they did. It's never, even though I talked in the last episode, you don't have to rationalize too many things, There's still something more, like you got to pick and choose. Now, if you encounter an individual and say it's an individual who does a mass shooting, okay, what else is there? There's a lot there. You can say on the surface, yes, they're a murderer, they're a mass murderer. Okay, what got them to that point? Now, somebody might say, okay, well, they were radicalized by some information on the internet. Okay. What was it within them that even led them to that information? What was going on? What was happening? What was the trauma? How was their inner child hurt? It's like you got to dig deep. What happened? Because it's so much. I don't care who the person is, how evil they might see to someone on the surface, or even how good. What was it about them that got them to this point? Like I know I'm acquainted. Well, I met her one time. I know it's somebody I'm familiar with, and somebody I'm close to actually knows her better. But it was a particular young lady. I ain't gonna call her name, but someone who's more familiar with her and her story said, yeah, she looks very sweet now. She got all sweetness and light, but one, she had survived death, and even before then was on a dark path. And all of that is still there, but then all of that got her to that point. It's just layers. Like we're all onions. Ultimately, all of us are really complex. With some of us, it's obvious. And even with the simplest person, they could seem the simplest, the least complex. They still have some complexity to them. There's always something. Like very few people are totally open, and very few people could actually articulate everything that went into how they think about things, how they encounter the world, how they engage the world, But whatever the case, it's just understanding there's always more. There's always more. Never think just what you see on the surface is everything. There's always more to it. And that's always something just to think about. Always keep that in mind. Always keep that in mind. Like I said, if you get practice enough in understanding psychology, how to really read people, you can still, I'm very good at reading people from around them. But even with that, I'm going to say I can maybe go 1 level, 2 levels, 3 deep at best with most of them, no matter what they say or do, because the only other way to truly know somebody, you actually have to talk with, interact with them, observe them, and that's not easy. That's not easy. So, but anyway, the reality is with anything, whether it's a person, whether it's some situation. When you see everything on the news and you see stuff about wars, how did they get to that war? How did they even get to that point? You got to dig deep. So, and like I said, what I was saying sometimes is not worth it. It just is. But just understand, regardless, whether you want to dig deep or just say, okay, it is what it is. Everything has layers. So, anyway, that's all I have for now. Y'all have a good day today. I'll see y'all on Sunday. Peace and blessings.